The Book of Jubilees, also known as the Little Genesis, is a fascinating ancient text that was once considered sacred by some early Jewish and Christian groups, but was later excluded from most official biblical canons. Its exclusion and controversial content have led to its reputation as forbidden knowledge. Here's a look at why it was banned and what makes it so intriguing. Before we start, we'd like to ask for your support. If you enjoy our video, please hit the like button. This will help us reach more people and create content for you. Now let's get started with today's video. The Book of Jubilees, often known as Little Genesis, is an ancient Jewish text that rewrites and expands upon the stories found in Genesis and Exodus. It provides a unique perspective on biblical events, law, and history, using a highly structured timeline that organizes events into periods of 49 years, called Jubilees. Although it was once revered in certain Jewish and early Christian communities, it was ultimately excluded from the canonical Bible. This exclusion has led many to consider it forbidden knowledge and to wonder why such a profound book was left out. Here's a detailed exploration of the Book of Jubilees, its contents, and why it was excluded from the biblical canon. Background of the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees is believed to have been written between the 2nd century BCE and early 1st century BCE during the Second Temple period, a time when various Jewish sects held differing interpretations of the law and the scriptures. Though its author remains unknown, the text is traditionally associated with the Essenes, a Jewish sect whose mystical and legalistic interpretations of scripture set them apart from mainstream Judaism. Portions of Jubilees were also found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, suggesting it held significance in some ancient Jewish circles. The book was written in Hebrew and later translated into Greek, Latin, and other languages. While it was respected and used in some Jewish and Christian circles, it was eventually excluded from both the Jewish and Christian canons, except in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which continues to include it. Content and unique themes of the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees retells stories from Genesis and the beginning of Exodus, but with significant modifications and additions. It provides a highly structured version of biblical history, dividing time into Jubilee cycles, each spanning 49 years. Here are some of its major themes and unique elements. The Jubilee cycles and a divine calendar. Unlike canonical texts, which present history as a series of events, Jubilees organizes biblical events into 7-year weeks and 49-year Jubilees. This structured timeline implies a cosmic order to history, suggesting that God's plans follow precise cycles. According to Jubilees, all major events in salvation history occur in predetermined periods, highlighting God's sovereignty over time and emphasizing a predestined, almost mystical sense of divine timing. A stricter legalism. The Book of Jubilees emphasizes a highly legalistic interpretation of God's commandments, more rigorous than what's found in the Torah. For example, it expands on the laws of the Sabbath and stresses ritual purity. Jubilees teaches that patriarchs like Abraham and Noah observed the same laws given to Moses centuries later. This approach suggests that God's law existed long before Mount Sinai, creating a sense of timeless divine order but also introducing a stricter, somewhat alienating set of rules for its readers. A different creation and flood narrative. Jubilees includes details absent in the canonical account of creation and the flood. It emphasizes that the 7 days of creation were set according to God's divine calendar, tying them to Jubilee cycles. Additionally, the book discusses the fall of angels known as the Watchers, who mated with human women, resulting in the Nephilim, a race of giants destroyed in the flood. These stories are only briefly mentioned in Genesis 6, but Jubilees gives them much more depth, presenting a supernatural struggle between good and evil before humanity's creation. Covenants and predestination. Covenants play a significant role in the Book of Jubilees, reinforcing the relationship between God and Israel. According to Jubilees, God made eternal covenants not just with Abraham but with earlier figures, emphasizing a sense of divine order and predestination. The book suggests that the patriarchs had foreknowledge of future events, with God directly revealing secrets of history and the law to them. This view of predestination suggests that humanity's choices are part of God's eternal plan, raising questions about free will that would later prove controversial. Expanded angelology. The Book of Jubilees delves deeply into the world of angels and demons. It introduces categories of angels with specific roles, such as guardian angel over nations and angels who record human actions. This angelology provides a framework for understanding the spiritual world, but also introduces ideas that were later seen as inconsistent with mainstream Jewish and Christian beliefs. The Watchers, fallen angels who corrupt humanity, illustrate a cosmic battle between good and evil, presenting a supernatural view of sin's origins. Apocalyptic expectations. Like some other Second Temple writings, Jubilees contains apocalyptic themes, including prophecies of future salvation and judgment. These themes point to a future messianic age and include descriptions of divine retribution against sinful nations. This apocalyptic focus aligns with certain early Jewish and Christian views, but was eventually seen as too extreme or politically sensitive, especially in periods of Roman occupation. Why was the Book of Jubilees excluded from the canon? The Book of Jubilees' exclusion from the canonical Bible can be traced to several theological, cultural, and political factors. Here are some reasons why it was left out of the Jewish and Christian canons. 1. Deviation from canonical narratives. Jubilees presents unique additions and deviations from the stories in Genesis and Exodus. For example, its portrayal of creation as part of a predetermined divine cycle differs from the more straightforward, linear account in Genesis. By suggesting that patriarchs like Abraham and Noah observed the full Mosaic law, it imposes a legalism not supported by the canonical texts. This reinterpretation of events likely contributed to the book's rejection, as it conflicted with the established teachings of the Torah. 2. Emphasis on legalism and purity laws. Jubilees takes an especially strict stance on ritual purity and adherence to the law. It mandates extensive regulations around marriage, dietary habits, and Sabbath observance, surpassing the requirements of the Torah. For instance, it forbids marriage with Gentiles and prescribes severe punishments for breaking the Sabbath. This extreme legalism may have aligned with the Essenes and some early Jewish sects, but it was out of step with the Pharisaic and later rabbinic interpretations that came to define Judaism. Early Christianity, too, found such strict laws incompatible with its teachings, especially as it embraced Gentile converts and emphasized faith over the letter of the law. For example, the Apostle Paul argued against imposing the Mosaic law on Gentile believers, stressing that salvation comes through faith in Jesus, not through strict legal observance. This difference in emphasis was another reason Jubilees was not included in the Christian canon. 3. Controversial angelology and stories of fallen angels. Jubilees focus on angels, particularly its expanded account of fallen angels mating with human women, presented challenges. While the story of the Nephilim is hinted at in Genesis 6, Jubilees goes further, detailing the Watchers' rebellion and its impact on human sin. The book's angelology also introduces a heavenly hierarchy and the idea of guardian angels over nations, concepts that might have been seen as speculative or even Gnostic by later religious leaders. As Christianity developed, mainstream doctrine became more cautious about speculative teachings on angels, viewing such ideas as potentially heretical or distracting from central tenets of faith. 4. Association with the Essenes and other fringe groups. The Essenes, a separatist Jewish sect that produced the Dead Sea Scrolls, held the Book of Jubilees in high regard. Known for their asceticism, strict observance of the law, and apocalyptic expectations, the Essenes embraced Jubilees' emphasis on purity and divine judgment. However, as Judaism became more aligned with the teachings of the Pharisees after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, texts associated with fringe groups like the Essenes were marginalized. Jubilees' association with the Essenes and its appeal to other fringe groups likely contributed to its exclusion from the canon. 5. Incompatibility with emerging Christian theology. While Jubilees has certain elements that align with early Christian beliefs, such as apocalyptic expectations, it also includes doctrines incompatible with the teachings of Jesus and the apostles. For example, Jubilees' emphasis on strict adherence to the law contrasts with Jesus' teachings about the spirit of the law and his focus on compassion over ritual purity. Additionally, its rigid stance on purity and marriage would have been at odds with the inclusive nature of early Christianity, which sought to welcome Gentile believers without imposing extensive legal obligations on them. 6. Potential Gnostic interpretations. By the time Christianity had spread in the 2nd century, Gnostic ideas, Esoteric beliefs that emphasized hidden knowledge and a mystical understanding of salvation began to gain influence. Jubilees' emphasis on hidden divine cycles, angelic roles, and secret knowledge of history could easily be interpreted in a Gnostic framework, making it a text that could promote heretical beliefs. The Church Fathers were wary of texts that might support Gnosticism, leading to the exclusion of Jubilees from the Christian canon. The appeal of Jubilees as forbidden knowledge. The Book of Jubilees is often considered forbidden knowledge due to its distinctive views, which challenge mainstream biblical interpretations. This perception stems from several unique aspects of the text. Hidden knowledge of time and cycles. Jubilees presents history as a series of predestined cycles, suggesting a hidden, divine order underlying biblical events. This prophetic calendar is not found in other biblical books, giving Jubilees a sense of secret knowledge accessible only to those who understand its deeper meaning. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. I hope you like this video. Thank you.